and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this video topic today with me, which is going to focus on the shadow patterns in the human collective. So the human as a collective field of energy, and the most specific imprints that are most deeply ingrained, that basically go to the very deepest core of what makes us unown these aspects of the self, and what makes us act from fear. And basically that fear is there because we believe we're separate. So for us to move into unity, we do always need to work with our shadow. And every one of you who's already consciously working with yourself, with awareness, you understand that nothing is owned within your own self-mastery without you really being discerning of what is your shadow, what is the collective shadow. These questions are subliminal and yet very deeply important questions for us to consider in the path of ascension. And although there's a lot of people, and specifically groups of people in the New Age movement, who really want to go into this light without really incorporating and owning this shadow. So I want to give you some of the examples and some of my own experiences and how I work with this energy. But basically I want to talk about the most dominant archetypes that are false imprints, most unrecognized imprints of what really is keeping us separate. So the basic imprints of the human collective at large, these are the things that I always see and witness constantly, time and time again, you know. So just today we were sitting there having tea because we had to stop at the ski village, and we had to wait for something. I'll tell you the whole story later because it's a part of the example I wish to share with you today. And then we were there for tea, and we were just looking around, and everyone in this beautiful room, you know, is like antiquely furnished and everything. People are just no longer noticing these things. And everyone's on their cell phones and their computers. It's just so non-present. And we were there with my mother just having this beautiful conversation, drinking this organic tea, looking at each other. And I was just so grateful for the experience of what happened in comparison to the day before, because, you know, sometimes we had these releasing moments that are not really comfortable for us, because for a lot of us that come from these places of higher realms of understanding, this energy, as dense as it is on this planet, it can still feel very uncomfortable for us, but yet we have to be fully present with the feelings. So we were sitting there, and I was so grateful that the whole experience kind of, you know, revolved around its circle, coming into a closure, into a completion. And I just took my mom's hand, and, you know, I just touched her like that. And then I had a look over the room, and I felt this feeling like, how must we look to most of the normal people? Or just, you know, it's like, are they thinking we're lovers or something? Because people are no longer used to affectionate, you know, like showcasing of love, which is just an expression of love that's just pure love and gratitude and sharing an intimate moment with someone. And people are so not present. And this is one of the things that keeps humanity stuck, because we can't witness these things. We can't witness the shadow. We can't even witness what's challenging for us if we're not present, if we're not really sitting with ourselves, if we're not really feeling ourselves. So yesterday I wrote this post on my Instagram page. Perhaps I can read it to all of you. It's very important because it's just something that I always do on a day-to-day basis. I spend a lot of times just in quiet contemplation, right? So I have to tell you that after sharing this post, and I'll read it to you first, what happened and what kind of comment I got from someone, which really made me think how still a lot of the people think, and how they judge, and how they misinterpret through their own mental structures, because they're not yet living in full presence of what's happening for them. So they continuously make assumptions for someone else, because for most people who are not yet willing, because it is about willingness to recognize your own shadow, if you're working on the level of mastery, that's something you can't avoid. You can go as much as you want into the light, but you're never going to embody that light if you don't also work equally at the same time with the shadow. So these things are much easier for people who don't want to own to project to the external world, to the politics, to the main system, to the governments, to the people in their life, to the people in the community, to the countries, to the wars between the countries, and to the wars we have basically within ourselves. These are the inner aggressions or passive aggressions that are happening within ourselves. So this is the post that I wrote. How much of your time do you use to really be with your soul, to feel all that wants to come through you in its fullness, not just partial fragments you allow, while you resist certain other aspects that you do not like? This is becoming of much great importance for all the ascending souls out there, for our time is coming to truly create from a space of wholeness. And this means not fragmented separation. The closer we feel to our inner home, the more light we will begin to radiate, and the more conscious merge with our spirit we will embody. It's so important to sit or lie down from time to time, to gather our thoughts into one synthesized whole, to feel our feelings at the deepest core of intimacy, and to hold back from nothing, so that every experience we've ever had can become crystallized wisdom. With our ascension, we're moving away from the to-do society. We have those to-do lists, constant to-do lists, and into a greater community of heart-centered connectedness, the new humans. Every space so full of life had to be vast with complete void at first before it had the potential to become anything. And this can only occur through conscious allowance and radical compassion, not control in the false illusion of power. Our greatest strength is our true human vulnerability, which leads to true, genuine compassion. Be with yourself, not because there is no one else to be with or around you, but because you love yourself and that's who you wish to be with, because you are as love embodied. So it was very surprising to me. Well, basically not very surprising because I'm used to this, for people who do not yet recognize the space of unity and wholeness. And that's why I want to share with you these typical, most imprinted beliefs and patterns within the old paradigm, which is based on fear and separation. And I want to get to the point of where they're really coming from. That's the point of this video. It's not just for me to go on and on, blah, blah, about the things that are supposedly wrong. It's not about that. It's about seeing the things, both positive, negative, as in one light of unity perspective. So as I shared that post, I got this comment from someone who said, I really watch you and I admire you, but at the same time, I'm thinking that's not so easy to say to someone who doesn't have kids. And, the tone was just so condescending. And it was like, I really wonder what your life would be like if you have kids. It was like, yeah, I admire you. I listen to you, but I wonder. It really makes me wonder. It was like, ... And first thought was like, first of all, why does anyone else have to wonder about the life of someone else? We're not here to wonder about, what's a person's life would be different if they had this experience, if they had that experience, right? So I'm going to go more into that when I'm going to share these main engraved patterns. But I want to say is that whenever we do that, that's a classical case of projecting, because the difference between a projection and your real emotional experience that you've had with someone, and I've just recently talked about this in one of my latest Ascension updates. You can read them on my blog, Diary of an Ascension Pioneer. And it spoke about the main difference, because sometimes people say, this is just a projection, and it's not. And sometimes it is a projection and we don't want to see it as such. So the main difference I want to share with you is that the projection is you've never had personal experience or interaction, intimate bond with someone, and yet you perceive them as something, and then you kind of, you just project your own reality and your own thinking onto them and their life and their story, which is basically nothing you know about. We have to start coming into the terms that we truly do not know anything about someone else. We can have the acknowledgement of them. We can have respect for them for what they supposedly are going through, and that's all. When someone tells you, I get it how it is for you. I get it. They never do. That's the thing, and that's the beauty of life. We never do. That's the process of us being these individualized aspects of source that each have taken upon our own perspective. And when someone comes to you this way and says, well, it's easy for you to say because you're not a mother, or because you're not like this, you're not like that. The thing is, the first thing I want to say is, if I was a mother and I'm not for a reason. That's my life and that's my own spirit choice. I know what it is like this for me. No one in this world has the right to make assumptions about my path because they're not from my spirit. I am. My soul is of my spirit, and my spirit knows the experience and initiations I have, and my mission is unique in that sense. So I am, in a way, a mother, like, Osho writes many times about that being the mother is an essence. It's not necessarily connected with having physical children. But what we do on this planet, we take our own personal experience, we take our own facet of creation, and we think, well, that's how we see all life from. And that's very narrow-minded. And, we kind of judge others because they're apparently going through another stream of life and it's foreign to us and we don't yet understand. So we kind of pick up on these things and we say, well, this is how it's supposed to be. And, I really wonder how different would it be. That's really all coming from this comparison, which is not knowing the originality and uniqueness of all of us. But the thing is, it's an essence of what we do. And the moment someone comes to us this way and they don't want to see it, they don't want to see their own reflection, I've been often asking myself about this, is why were we always giving these responses that we kind of either explained ourselves or we try to reason or validate or say, well, you don't understand, blah, blah. A lot of people do that. And I am all about the truth, which is in truth the most radical compassion you can have for yourself. What does this mean? That's the essence of your self-love, which is self-awareness, self-knowledge plus self-love, which makes you the divine trinity of all of it. Love, wisdom, power. That's all who you are. And whenever you go against the self, you don't understand, because with not enough awareness, there's not enough knowledge, there's not enough physical experience that would make you filter through that awareness. So you have physical abundance in your physical reality because of that awareness you possess. And because of that, we sometimes act from this separation instead of understanding the difference and the uniqueness of who we are is for a purpose. And then we start complaining, judging, blaming, and hiding behind this, because I often see that people who will tell these things in a nice way, like, I just like you, and I kind of like, I honor you, but at the same time, I wonder, that's not really honoring. Because when you are honoring, because when you are appreciative of another being, you don't put your own post stamp onto them and what you think they should be doing or what they should be different for them to say things the way they do. So what I really initially meant with my sharing was that we really need to be present with ourselves. So many times we're running around, right? And because of this, we're not witnessing the shadow aspects because we think making things and being productive and being out in the world and having these endless to-do lists is what makes us human. But in truth, that's one small tiny percentage of what really makes us human. The humankind, the humanoid species, if I can call it like that in bigger, grander terms of our galactic consciousness, was meant to be an active expression of love embodied. It always was the main seed that was placed as the seed of the Christ within the human origin. And as different densities of the human experience were exchanging and evolving in their own state of self-expression, many things came into being. But what we've lost is that innate connection with the self. And you can see it now in the populace at mass. You go somewhere out and people are always on their phones. They're always texting their own computers all the time. It's just being estranged from their experience. And when something happens, and that's why I want to share my own experience with you today, how I move through it and in the constant knowing that this is for a purpose for me, so that I can have my own acknowledgement of those feelings. And for me, when I share my videos, they have to be embodied. And I'm not afraid to share my own examples because that's what makes me human. That's what makes me express feelings, right? And as I was going through this experience of mine, I had this thought, how can people even dare to judge something or to even put a stamp like, I wonder how different that would be. I masked under this nice sharing, but it's not really nice. I have to tell you this, we need to start being responsible for the energy of the words we put out. Because you cannot take it back. You can say you're sorry. You can say, well, I didn't mean it that way. And that's what a lot of times people do. They say something and afterwards they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Well, but yes, you did. Initially you did. Otherwise you would not say it. And it's okay. And we got to stop having these masks like, oh, it's so bad to be bad from time to time. But those of you who are pure at heart, you know that every single perception of the mistake or an expression of something you felt like, oh, it came from fear or separation was for you to acknowledge, not shame it or fear it and then hide it. Because that's what we do. We want to run and hide. And I want to tell you, how do we work with these energies, with ourselves, with other people, more about how do we work with these energies, how to work with the shadow for ourselves and assisting others in their own shadow work. And for the collective, this is what most advanced souls do, because they have mastered the arts of how to do that within themselves and their own energy transmutation. They can move on to higher grounds. Basically, that's how it is in creation. You master something, you evolve to a new level, new assignments. And it's just simple, simple math, right? You can handle as much, and that as much will be given to you. So I want to say more about this energy work in conscious mastery will be shared in my book about volunteer souls, their mission, and everything within the greater understanding of the divine great plan, okay, in creation. But I'm going to give you a little bit of the preview of what's really important for us and what are some of the things that we got to start acknowledging. Because I've met so many people who only wish to be in the light. And I remember once this person said to me, but what if some of us were always only in the light, right? And I thought, well, the true divine light of unity is all. It's all experiences, is all extensions of source as one. So if they do mean that as in one aspect, then they're immediately automatically in that duality. So what they're saying through that belief is, I don't want to be in the shadow. What it means is, I don't want to acknowledge the shadow. What it means is, I'm bad if I'm in the shadow. So because of this belief that many humans had that it's bad, and so therefore you got to keep evolving only through the light, and a lot of the times the path of that will be the path of false light, which will give you a lot of the misconstrued beliefs about things that are not really of that nature. So what a lot of people do within this dynamic is when they try to better themselves, and that's why I love when Osho said, you don't better yourself. That's an illusion. You just keep on working. It's like developing who you already are. You keep remembering that. And the illusion that you have to always better yourself is what the society wants to sell us. And that we will continuously need to work on it, be better. And when something is more of a feeling like it's a shadow, no, not me. That's what we hide behind these masks and being hypocritical and condescending, is because we don't want to just admit it. It's how I felt in a moment. If I had a whim of the feeling and I instantly, let's say I deleted someone somewhere on Facebook, something someone said, and I felt it in a moment. I can't take that back. Recently someone asked me, hey, why did you delete me on Facebook? And I was put in this experience where I felt so empowered. I got to share this with you. I could have this path of, oh, sorry, yeah, these excuses, which I don't want to do. Masters don't do that. We're masters of our own self. We got to own every action, word, and deed. And so I simply said, it's kind of hard to explain everything behind this because it's a complex topic, but I'm going to try. And I just moved into it consciously, and I tried to explain to them and the patterns that I felt within myself and why this triggered me in such a way. And the response was really beautiful. So think about how things would change if we started coming from this radical honesty. Okay, if someone comes at you with a demand of energy and you're reading their signature and you're like, whoa, just trying to get my energy, they're not wanting to consciously share with me. So you withdraw, you're like, I don't want to deal with that person. What if instead, as your work of service to the light, as your devotion to the truth and wholeness, that's my main mission beyond all the other missions I have, is to work for the unity consciousness, is to bring the perspectives that will keep us more and more intact with this wholeness archetype perspective, which is who we are at our core. And what if at those times you could simply say to someone, I can't help you when you're like that. But just share your truth. You are doing this. Look into what you're doing. And this is the reason why I'm not responding, or this is the reason why not, because you're just running away, and that person will feel they don't, somehow fit in your world, or you don't like them, or whatever. You give the reason that's behind the truth. You don't hide behind these masks. So the reason why we have those hiding behind the shadow perspectives is because we're afraid of being really radical authentic, which is what makes us human as well. So for us to be angels, as an earth angels, embodied angel prototypes, the new humans, we had to master both the shadow and the light. What do you think gives you such mastery? Do you think souls, like advanced souls, like some of us who are here to help with the betterment of the planet, moving into unity, you think we're always just fluttering our wings and in the light and just being, we couldn't handle Earth if that was true. So I'm going to give you my example so that I can tell you more about this in real action, because as much as there's many people who share about the Ascension, and a lot of these perspectives are beautiful and I respect them and they're more or less of the light, but I'm here to speak not just for the light but the truth. And the truth is all experiences are as one. Light and shadow as one. love and light as one component, divine feminine and masculine in an equal mission together in wholeness. So the most standing out patterns I wish to talk about today, which are imprints in the human psyche that have been around for eons and eons of time. And for a lot of us, it's kind of hard to break through, or it's kind of hard to crack through these codes because it's just so weird. And when I say weird, it just means unfamiliar. It's new grounds, it's new territory. But that means that we don't just stay as we are. We're going to continue to evolve and expand. So what got me thinking was that a lot of times, and this is the message I got today from my channeled daily messages that I always share on my Instagram page and on Facebook page, you can tune into there and read them, was about the fact that so many of us have continued this imprint and belief of unconditional love that was very distorted, which was keeping an energy exchange open with energies or people or events or situations that were not responding, that were not equal matched, that were not equally in mutual reception with you and what you naturally just tend to give and give. But that was the belief behind it all. There was, I'm going to overcompensate because everything in the new universe always tends to balance itself out. So if you're with someone and you're going to be such a giver and they're going to be such a non-giver, this will eventually need to balance itself out. And if you feel, well, the other person's not doing it, then I will overcompensate. But what that creates is like this. It's even bigger distortion, even bigger disharmony and imbalance. So we have to break through that code, which is, that codependency and attachment and addiction to that is because of that. Because we've been babysitting that pattern for so long that now it's gotten just so out of the hand of proportion that there's some people doing the work and some people are just, just in this pure victim consciousness. They don't want to do anything. They're just complaining about things. They're jealous about people who are really living up to their fullest potential, and they think it's because we have it so easy. I gave you this example of someone judging me for not having kids and why I'm able to do these things. It's not because I don't have kids. Trust me, if I had children, I'd still do the same thing. Perhaps I'd have to get even more organized because I do a million things at once, but I'd still do that because it's me. It's what I do. It's my purpose in creation. I could not live myself. It's because of this I do that, not because I don't have kids or I'm so easy, and my life is so easy and simple. Those of us who are living our highest potential, we make things look easy. But let me tell you one straight fact, it's not easy. It's never been easy to live with such a high advanced perception and be in this world of density. And always this energy pushes through you and it kind of creates this counterbalancing effect. And you're always needing to see everything with this awareness. And sometimes you will have your human moments and go like, gosh, if people just, from everything already I have to experience as myself, if people wouldn't clash with that, if they wouldn't interfere with what I'm already having to go through myself. But they do, is because they're trying to find these channels for outpouring and outbursting of the energy that they're suppressing within themselves. And the energy suppression creates, again, even more imbalance. So what happens is we've been feeding this pattern for so long, and we've been trying to overcompensate for so much of this lack of this true light, which is non-recognized shadow, that we said we're going to do this ourselves. We're going to do everything. But even those of you who are here to emanate with light, who bring the light, who infuse the light to this planet, perhaps even those of you who are volunteer souls, but it's still not all up to us. You have this perception, why everything depends on me because I'm this light. Well, create even more pressure for yourself. God damn it, we can't. And we had to stop this because at the core, we had to realize that overcompensating for something makes you deplete yourself. And just yesterday, I got this message from the guide saying depletion, exhaustion. That's what is the path that leads us towards this, is we can't clear everything and we can't be here for everyone. We can't be always on demand. I mean, sometimes when someone asks me in the way that it's not really a request, but it's more a demand in my time and energy because it's not respectful of your space and your time, I feel like, well, who am I to them that everyone thinks now I'm going to be there with my magic wand, saving everyone's lives and saying, tick, 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 tick. Because there's so much of the things I need to do to bring these higher parts of awareness that we can all do to advance through us, not through another or someone doing the work for you, because that doesn't even exist. So it's not always easy. Please remember that. And how it might look in 1 hour video you see or a bunch of pictures, it's not all of our lives. Every one of us, we go through so much. But the difference is we go with it and through it with awareness. you know? So that makes it look easy on the surface, but it's not. We have to go through the same thing. So on the other hand, I know another person who also has children and it's also doing so many things. And I'm thinking, you see, why would children be used as an excuse or anything in your life? I have this, or I have a sick parent I need to look after, or this and that. You know, for many years of my ascension, and at the same time I was put in this pot to kind of go and grab my mom and take her out of the karmic cycle, because she was a soul who was completing it. She was a very advanced soul and very pure, but I was the one that helped her. And at the time being, that was very challenging for me. A lot of my energy went for that, but I knew it was right. And at the same time, I was just starting Ascension Pioneers. I had no money. Everything I was doing was for free. It was, you know, all these things are my life experiences, and they're precious jewels that, you know, they're part of my mastery. They're part of what makes me who I am, and to be able to share from what I've went through. Because when you go through, you know how. Everyone will go through that uniquely, but we are bringing the infusion of the light that goes beyond these imprints. So it wasn't easy for any one of us. So when we are in unity, we have to see the perspective that all of us go through difficulties, all of us go through challenges, but some of us just don't speak about it because it's in our own initiations, and we don't need to whine and feel, you know, like we're victims. I don't speak about most of these things. They're for me. What I share with you later, you know, after everything that's already experienced and integrated, is the crystallized wisdom, because that's why I'm here. Not to complain, because there's already enough of that in the world. So why would I do that and contribute to that? Do you see? So these people who make such assumptions, they feel, it's so easy to be on this path. Well, you can do it because it's easy for you, right? No. When we come from the perspective of wholeness and unity, we have to see that everyone is doing their own job. Everyone is coming from the exact perfect angle and positioning where they're being put into. There's only perfection in the divine plan. There's no imperfection. The only imperfection is in our human, distorted, you know, limited seeing, which is like this, that makes us as such. I want to give you this one example, which is this joke I've heard recently about Moses and the Ten Commandments. You know this joke when Moses goes on top of the hill and he's like, oh, you know, he comes back down and he tells his apprentice or someone, you know, he says, you know, I got all these revelations and epiphanies, and I know everything from the beginning of the Big Bang and how we were made and all the galaxy and the mysteries of the universe, and I have to put all this down. I have to write about it. And he said, the other guy said, you know, papyrus is really expensive. So what ended up really being being brought into manifestation was this just 10 commandments on a paper. But that got me to think that so many of us, right, we know so much. It's so vast. It's like, oh, sometimes we feel like we're going to explode, and our human experiences match that. It was so much diversity and intensity. And yet what we share is that crystalline wisdom, right? Is that essence. That's the important thing. So if someone does not want to get our messages, someone does not equally respond to that, or they're judging it, they're projecting their own stuff, the only thing we can do is say, no, thank you. You know, within yourself, you said, not having anything to do with me. You always have to acknowledge where the other person is coming from. Perhaps you feel their pain. Perhaps you feel there's disappointment with life, but you don't have to take it as your own. That's the mistake many of us were doing or were supporting, because we thought we're going to overcompensate. We're going to make the whole world bright and shiny and healed again. No, no one is put in such a position to be the savior of anyone. It doesn't exist. Human distorted minds create these saviors and martyrs and whatever, but that doesn't exist, because at large we can play our small part, which is not really small, but it's a part, and it matters and it's important. So one more thing that I have to say here about these 10 commandments is, you know, can people really, you know, when we look at it from that perspective, can we really learn and change our imprints through commandments? You know, a lot of religions are like, don't do this, don't do that. It's not within the light to do this and that. And again, it feeds more separation. So can we really command things into being and think that things will improve within our imprinted human collective and distorted patterns that keeps us separate? I don't feel so. I don't think so, you know. So when I share insights, we share proactive, we share, you know, what is the shadow? How can we acknowledge it rather than just don't do this, don't do that? And I think it's the humans that misinterpreted those 10 commandments, you know. The mission always was to make us aware of when we are in the fallen frequency. It's okay. You can choose it. You can stick with it as long as you want, but you still have to know it's a fallen frequency. That's fact. And no one is brainwashing you and telling you how to live your life. But those of us who are here to stand within the truth will say things. We'll say no, you know. And I've recently noticed a change in my own energy and in my own responses when I started telling people things as clear as day and night. What I feel, what my feeling feels, because a lot of times I was hiding my feelings and I felt it's okay, I can handle it. I'm so much in the light. And I was so much suppressing this that in the end, my body was like, so much of that. It's like, no, don't let people walk all over you. Don't say it's okay because they don't know. Yes, I acknowledge the fact that many people don't know. But again, at the same time, we can't babysit their not knowing. We have to stand up for ourselves and say, I get where you're coming from. I get that a lot of it is coming from the shadow, but I'm not taking this. I'm not going to be treated this way. That's very important for our path. I want to tell you my example, right? This was this week where I saw there's still so much good in humanity. So my example, it's again very practical and physical, but I have to remind you that most advanced growth often happens through the crystallization of very simple things in life. And that's what the master will see. You will see messages in everything, even if it's the most densest errand you have to run, and it's still something for you to own. So I finally, after 2 years of postponing, bought myself a new pair of skis for cross-country skiing for the skate technique, because I was learning it with the regular skis, but I was really using so much effort because they're harder and, you know, bigger, and it's like hard, and I was like, oh, exhausted every time. And 2 years I was like, no, it's okay, I don't need the skis. It's okay, I don't need it, right? Humble and modest as I am. And then all of a sudden I said, you know what? There was this discount and I bought them, and I said, you know what? I'm going to buy myself these skis. But the thing is, I didn't fully trust my guidance because I still felt like, perhaps I'm going to kind of like question it. And I started things like, is it really good I bought them? You know, it's still going to be weather to ski. You know, did I just throw money away? Well, it's like I started doubting it. And what happens with this is presented, this non-clarity within us, we'll get confirmations of that, right? So what happened is I had to go, you know, I bought them without those binds that you can basically wear your shoes with them and use them. They say, oh, it's okay, you can use them with the old skis, right? And then I take them to the shop, to the technicians, and they're like, no, you can't use these don't work. I'm like, what? Okay, you gotta buy new ones. I call someone at the main shop we have there, the main ski center. He's just hanging up the phone on me, saying like, we don't have time now, you know, crowded here. I'm like, oh, I immediately feel the energy's not right. So I go back to the first technicians and I say, you know what else can I do? They say, go get the binds here. You know, I get to the shop where I bought the skis. I ask, which do I need? Okay, get these ones. I order online. They get them to the shop. You know, this whole long story. I had to go there so many times. I was like losing it. And just yesterday, I finally get there. I give them the, you know, the binds. We bought them. And like, here they are. And they're like, no, you're missing this piece of plastic. I'm like, what? No. And they're like, yeah, we can use those. You got to return them. We return them, right? I go back to them. They're like, what's my other option? He says, well, you got to buy new ones there at the other shop there. And they're like 70 euros or something. I'm like, what? I already paid 30 for those and I couldn't get my money back. I just got this, you know, check, like, you know, the money's there, but it's not going to be returned to you. And I was just so exhausted after that. I just said, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, we'll call you tomorrow. I'm like, okay. And I went out. I just felt this upsurge of feelings. And the feelings that I felt, they were just coming to the surface. I needed to feel them. That's the shadow aspects of us. We need to feel those feelings. And because when we feel them, we'll feel the message coming through. And then my mom goes like, it's okay, they're there, forget about it, it's not important. And I like lash out. I'm like, of course it's important. You can't just like shush me like this. My feelings are valid. You know, there was already this person judging me about who I am. How do they know? They don't even know my life. They don't know the things I go through. They don't know how hard it is for me at times because, you know, people think it's so simple. It's not. I live a life that most people, they want to make the progression of living and being sustained only through their purpose, but some of them are afraid to. But how I live is from day to day. I don't know if I'm going to get paid. I don't know if I'm going to get a donation. I don't know if I'm going to sell my courses. It's so radical. You know, when Osho talks about live in danger, well, that's how I live. It's dangerous. I don't know, but I have to trust 100%. And people don't know that that's not easy. It's not always easy. You know, it's easy to go to a job, check in every day, get your salary. It's so, you know, it's so safe. And the thing is, I felt so exposed in that moment. I felt like the whole world is crumbling at me. And I felt, even these tiny things, I don't get much money. And even when I get it, I use it and I have to overpay. I would already get 2 skis for that money. So I had to release those feelings. I had to see my patterns, and pattern where, even when I receive, I have to constantly give it again away, and I never have something just for me. It's always like constant drainage. It's because when we have this, we feel like we don't deserve, we're not fully supported. So that belief says you're not. Money goes away, right? But the moment I released that and I released that worry, what happened is the next day they called me and they said, you can come back. We're gonna see. There's this amazing man working there, the technician. He said, go back to see if those ones would fit. And he went with me to the store. I mean, it was amazing. It's like most people don't do that. And he said, well, these will fit. He tried the plastic. He's like, these will fit. So they put it on. And he didn't want to even charge me for it in the end. He said, you already went through enough. And I'm like, thank you. And I bought him like this piece of, the candies, and the other guy as well in the other shop who sold me just the plastic. I know it's a random example, but it's not really random because these things are so vital for us. What we're mastering is like to be human, to know and wear our awareness in the human form. And I had to be so patient. I had to be so observant. And yet I had to also allow myself to be human, to feel those feelings. They just overflooded me. And my mom just had to say the right words, which were, like, don't worry, it's okay. And I hate that. I was like, no, it's not okay. Don't shush me. You can't just like pretend. You can't be ignorant about these things. There are messages for me. I have to get to the bottom of the things. But the thing is, we always need to feel our feelings first, work with the shadow. We can't get to the bottom of the things. That's what most people want to do with the mind. First, we need to allow those feelings because the feelings are messengers. They show us, they bring everything to the surface. And then it is, when I'm like this, and it's very rare, but when it happens, I gotta release it. And then it comes, and I'm saying things, sometimes I'm even crying, and I'm saying these things are coming out, and I'm already channeling guidance. Everything is in the package of energy that comes through that release. I don't need any channel, I don't need any external confirmation. There it is. And I always say to my mom, like, oh, I need to channel this. And she said, but you just did. You already did. And that's the wisdom. That's how we work with the self. So I saw that so many things were revealed and in that release, you see? So everything, all the existence took care that I still got the skis in the end, still got them at the same price. Everything was fine. I didn't have to pay, even more money for the things. But at first I had this pattern, like, why always me? I work freely, I give so freely, and then why do I have to give? Why do I have to not get it for, like cheap discount like most people? And I felt like, oh, it's an injustice, But then I saw it, in that shadow there was light. And that's the meaning of my video. And that's why I'm sharing it today, because it's so fresh within me that I can share with all of my heart. Not just like, okay, I read it down about this, blah, blah, it's shared with my heart. My heart was in it. I went through it. And, I bought this candy for this man and I said, most people don't do that. Thank you so much. And he was like, no, don't give me that. And he was just he didn't want to receive. And yet I was like, please, it's for the whole team. They're all awesome, these people there. And you can easily feel the energy. So the message was, first of all, trust your choices, because the moment you're going to doubt them, you're going to get confirmations of that doubt, you see. And then you will still see, when you trust, the expressions of radical compassion from fellow human beings. And that humanity, that humanitarian essence was so beautiful, what was revealed in this story. And he was amazing. I love this guy, because the funny thing is, we come to the store, right? Last hope, is this gonna work, right? And he looks, before he looked, if the model fits. And I asked him just one more time, I said, what's my last resort if this doesn't work? And he's just like, he starts laughing. I could just see him, he communicate with me through this, because he didn't go in this like, yeah, you're gonna have to pay even more money. Like, he just started laughing, because this sarcastic laugh that you just like, yeah, I said, there's the humor in it too, right? We got to see the humor in it. And it was just funny. But these experiences are often those that will show us the courage of perseverance, of strength, of allowing ourselves to feel. And then we're going to get recognitions from others as well. It was really beautiful. So a lot of the times, my main message here is that the hardest for people at large is to recognize their own darkness. They just don't want to see it. They so mad at things in the world and other people. But it's the fastest and most effective and most transformative when you know how to work with your own energy transformation. So when I'm sharing these stories with you is because when I go through them, they're so real. And in fact, that's what makes my human experience real. It's not lived here in the head. It's not all just channeled stuff in higher realms. You know, our wings as angels, we can't flutter here on earth. So how do we do that? We develop the grounds, we develop the roots, and then our wings grow, but we're still kept as in a grounded mode here. And then we become earth angels. You know, a lot of people use the word earth angel, but I don't believe you fully own it until you ground your wisdom in your mastery. That's what I believe. So the easiest, right, in comparison to owning your darkness is to project it out externally and not seeing it in yourself. So you put it into others and other situation. A lot of people, a lot of you, especially volunteer souls, you're already pure enough. You're most of the time transforming energy of others or the collective. But with people who lack this purity, they lack it because they don't see unity. So the purity is in unity. So we of purity can assist those who demand our time and attention and many times energy resources. You know, people who go like, give me this, give me that, I need your time, you know, but they're not willing to respectfully come and meet you in the mutual reception. So instead of developing their own power, you know, they just want yours. And blaming and judging us or being jealous that they're not yet happy within their own life. And what can we do? The best is to put them on a you know, put them in the real perspective. We put them into realistic perspective. So example would be, even recently someone, you know, they always shared this funny remark about me. Oh, you're always out there skiing or doing this, you know, most people work. And then I got a few times this, and I'm like, you know, in every joke, there's a little bit of reality. What do you really mean about that? And then I started thinking how many times people who are working as volunteers, and I do most of my work, as you see, as voluntary. I don't know if I'm going to ever get paid for it or not. I have to trust. But the thing is that people will not respect and put value to things that are not paid or somehow printed out, or this is the certificate, or, you know, this is certified. This is so bizarre. People, this is so bizarre. And because our values are placed differently, you know, someone values people who go to work 8 hours, you know, people who work at home, it's like our work never stops. I've told you many times, it's 24/7. We're constantly, if we're not transforming energies, then we're sharing about this and we're, you know, communicating, and people come, and it's non-stop. It doesn't stop. And just because someone has a different value system and they undermine our values and what we share, we shouldn't allow this, you know, on our own behalf. People who say like, oh, you're just volunteer, right? You do nothing, you just lay around. You know, they don't know, they don't see you, they don't know your schedule. You say endless to-do list just because you have kids or a job, you know. No. In unity, we're all doing our work of refinement wherever we are, wherever, which level, it doesn't matter. But respect comes in seeing the uniqueness of the perspective and the placement within creation of everyone. So it's how it is most of the times. Sorry, I gotta say it because it's the shadow of the human psyche. So it's time to end the eons of this lasting pattern, which I've mentioned to you, of this overcompensating for the lack of energy coming from the other sources or someone else. Because it's not our job, especially as volunteer souls, to do so. We're here to be the truth demonstrators. What to demonstrate love means to be a facilitator. You're not just a word of mouth. You do, but it's not just about that. It's the energy coming through. And love means that sometimes it will have to be sharper, sometimes it will have to be, you know, more direct, sometimes with a little softness. It doesn't matter. You trust the guidance, how that truth wants to come through you, but it has to be coming from purity. If your purity is still compromised, it means you're not yet with a unity perspective. So for us to master that, to own that, we have to be so crystal clear. We have to be so piercingly clear through what is happening and is in where we stand. So that quickly, sometimes, you know, we can also fall for external manipulations. And I want to now talk about what manipulation is. So let's say if someone is less aware, they want to turn something around. Again, manipulation will be an act of you not wanting to own an energy and your own actions and your responses, but because you want to come out, it's a mask. Manipulation is a mask. Then you want to manipulate someone into seemingly make them do what you do, to say, see, you do the same, or oh, look, you know, it's almost like you'd be trying to force a false mirror. and say, you know, this is what you do, don't you see it? Like always turning around, turning words around, turning energy around, turning, you know, making up things. It's manipulation is so vicious because it keeps you in the cycle of fragmentation and separation, is because these imprints are not recognized, and because someone feels they're so good. I had an example of such a person. They felt I'm so good, I'm so given, but they would only give when it, you know, it kind of like matched up what they felt. And most of the time they were so cheap, you know, in their heart. They were like so you know, like putting the energy, and like unless they felt this benefits me in a way, I give. And then they felt, oh, you know, this is a generous person. Again, that's manipulation. And especially if someone tries to keep you in their life or keep the energy flowing between you two, when you say no, by manipulating the energy or turning the energy around, so you would have this belief about them. In truth, they're not embodying that. So recently I had two dreams. You know, there were dreams showing me dynamics between me and someone else. And in the dream was like the things they were saying, it was like an instant lie. And in the dream I saw it. But the reason they said those things are not because they're mean or vicious. It's because they wanted to keep my energy constantly flowing in their life because it made them feel good. But they would never reciprocate the same way I do. They'd never love me the same way. They couldn't, because they don't yet know unconditional love within themselves. But the reason why people do that is this manipulation that's so unconscious, is because they don't want to own these things within themselves, and they don't want to come into the clarity. So we have to be the declarations, the demonstrators of that. It's a huge thing, you know, it's a huge thing to master, because it's much easier to just be silent and withdraw and walk away. In some cases, yeah, it works. In most cases, when it's someone you're intimately, you had a relationship with, or reaction or something, your souls needed to exchange, perhaps that person needs to hear that message, needs to hear that they are not only such a light, they also have shadow, and you've witnessed it, you felt it on you, and you don't have to judge them and give the actions of what they did. No, you just say, I'm not going to allow this anymore. Take the full ownership and responsibility for when you did, because you did. You know, no one can take away things or energy or love from you, or, you know, hurt you unless we allow it. So we have to own that responsibility. It's what makes us act from wholeness and mastery. But then at the same time, we don't allow it. We don't no longer like babysit it. Okay, now last thing, promise, last and least, last but not least, is these main, I think there are five imprints that are most deeply engraved in the human consciousness. Basically, it's not really consciousness, it's the lack of thereof. And what is behind it, okay? So the first thing is judgment, as always. Recently, we read this book again from Robert Schwartz. I mean, I didn't read it, but my mom reminded me of some things. It's called The Plan of Your Soul, something like that. And I read it years ago when I started my awakening. It's a really beautiful book, and she reminded me of some of the things that are shared there. And it talked a lot about judgment in terms of it prevents our growth, because we're stuck. We're so stuck in this. This is how it is. You know, what appears to be fear, you know, false perception appearing to be real. So judgment is really coming from not knowing our soul. Second thing, comparison. Comparison is a subsequent act of that judgment, and it comes from not knowing our path. So the only reason why you compare yourself with someone, oh, they don't have children, or they don't have this, or they're doing the work, why am I not doing it, is because you don't know your path. When we know our uniqueness, we're so loving it, we never wish to compare with anyone. We love everyone. We love what everyone does, you know, uniquely. Sometimes people ask me, hey, Boone, what's your opinion about this person or this project, what these people do? I'm like, it's not my job to say, really. I'm like, I'm only here, and I can't only be here for my unique variation of creation, my expression, my commitment to service, that devotion will be so fullest, and that has to have 100% of my life force input. The rest, sorry, I just have to trust these people are being guided, doing their own things. That's enough for me. You know, it ends there. Comparison, not knowing our path. Third thing, victimhood. It comes from not understanding the journey. So, you know, the journey is the things we have to go through, the challenges we have to go through. So we feel victimized because we don't know the journey. We don't want to accept it. We don't want to acknowledge it, that we've chosen all of that before coming here. So the fourth thing is, no, sorry. It's actually more than 5, I think. Yeah, the fourth thing is self-centeredness, right? This is so deeply engraved as well, because I know a lot of people who think they give, but it ends with them and their close circle. The rest, they don't care. I'm not saying you always have to give. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about your care, your love, your affection, your commitment, your devotion, your passion, input, anything creative. Self-centeredness comes from not knowing oneness. So sometimes, like I said, it doesn't just end with the well-being of you and your family. It expands. We're one being, and we are truly connected and aligned with unity consciousness. You don't just think of that. The consequences of the few in your circle, the rest, you don't give a rat's ass to say it in a farmer language. Farmer language. Yeah, sometimes I got to say things just like that. It's okay. I'm not perfect. The fourth, or fifth, fifth thing is the non-deserving. And that's really engraved as well, because it creates all this false poverty, and elbowing, and I need more, and someone has less, and it's like this constant struggle. I don't have, I can't afford. A lot of us have been working through these imprints as well. All of that leads to poverty, which means poverty and awareness that actually leads to physical poverty. That's how it is. And this comes from not knowing trust. We don't know trust. So we think we constantly have to do more, create more, have more, take more, get more, but never think about terms of giving more, So the sixth, instead of fifth, is not loving unconditionally. So this comes from not knowing love. And this is still, like I would say, the basis of everything that creates all of the other imprints. It's like the motherboard, the mother house of everything. And in truth, not, because the word mother means that unconditional divine love. So I'm not going to call it like that. But unconditional love means unconditional giving. And like I said, it's not the same as you give to those that are unbecoming of you, that are not reciprocating, but you give, spread out, whoever is meant to touch, infused with the light, it goes out, it comes back, it comes back always a 10,000-fold times. For me, money is okay to make me feel I don't have to worry about it, so I can do my mission. The rest, I don't see any meaning in money. I don't see any value, so I don't put my focus there, and because I don't have as many, I don't have as much, so if whatever we focus on, that's what we're always going to infuse, right? And if we put the meaning of money, like, oh, money, I have stuff, position, power, it's still separation. And a lot of times we won't admit that. And I sometimes at the end of my videos, I ask you that if you resonate with my videos and you feel heart connected and centered, to reciprocate, because it benefits you in your journey, but it comes from your heart. It's not like it's coming from separation. It comes from unity, because it's all one. It feels it supports you or the whole, then you support in your own way, as you much know in that moment. But you don't demand it. You don't demand it. So if we don't know unconditional love within, we can't give it. It's foreign. It's unfamiliar, because a part of us, our fragmentation of soul, has made us forget. So what is this conditional love? Is when we give only when it benefits to ourselves. That means it benefits us to how our ego translates something should benefit us, instead of what we're really meant to receive. That's higher calling and guidance. So basically, we don't trust that love is free and abundant, and that's why it creates all of the separation on this planet. So I gave you my example with my work of devotion into service, how unconditional it is. Sometimes people tell me, just recently I got an email from someone if I could hire a professional writer. And I said, look, sorry, I can't, because, if I made money that's extra from this, then I could pay someone. But from this, where I am now, I'm not in a position to do something like that, because most of the work I do is still voluntary, provides my basic needs. And I haven't yet expanded to such a degree that I have a group of people working with me or for me, or that people would also in a way learn to give unconditionally. It's hard for them. And a lot of people who still work in jobs, work for someone or work for something, and for them it's not fully fulfilling. And sometimes they want to bypass that by not really doing this work themselves. For me, it was a step-by-step process, because I knew my mission so strongly that I said, I don't care. And for me, the most important thing is to keep the knowing, keep the information so pure. So I keep it free from all propaganda, from business oriented. Sometimes people wanted to make it into business. I'm not into that. If anyone wants to share my messages in their communities and their groups, by all means, if they quote where it comes from so that people can find me, I have no problem with anything, because it's all free. It's all meant to share itself, because it's not coming from any specific source other than the source itself. So I gave you my example, and again, how connected we are when we know our path, how pure everything is, and how simple everything is when you know what you're about. And for me, that's why the purity was not in serving and benefiting myself, but benefiting the whole, to the degree that I put this in front of my own desires and ego wills or whatever I want to create for myself only. Even if I had moments when I was like, oh, I'm not getting anything in return. I was so, at times it got me, in my own shadow, when I felt I'm not supported. People don't value, they don't respect, they don't reciprocate. Sometimes it feels like a dry spell. And I go like, oh gosh, it doesn't even have any value. And exactly at those times, I get a letter from someone, or I get in recognition or something, and I'm like, oh, thank you, higher self giving you this tap on the back and saying, it's okay, it's about the work, it will be fine. And I remember when there was this channeling from Larkma, when they said that for the wave of us who are first timers in this, that we're all about this resource exchange. We're doing this within ourselves, not just, the bigger picture will expand from us, from our intimate connections, and shared in such a way. It's going to be the hardest for us, they said. We have to stick through, and I'm sticking through, sticking to my guns. So when you're really about the giving, even when others don't always appreciate or reciprocate, and you still continue and continue, you don't let that stop you or think that's what it's about. When you remember always what it's really about, and it's to move into unity consciousness, then you're always going to have an empowerment, an encouragement, and inspiration to do what you continue to do with such love. And in the end, love is the most powerful force. It's not knowledge, it's how you do it. It's whether you do something that you have knowledge about with love or not. You can have the greatest knowledge, but you turn something into a stinking business, which is all about you. Still, not yet full unity. That's all I'm saying. All my videos are meant as expansions of our thinking patterns, of feeling into greater depths of our heart. In no way they're meant as judgment. They're just meant as poking into the parts of our psyche that sometimes are yet unexplored or unrecognized. They're in no way meant to be argumentative or, judgmental, because even sometimes if I'm judged, I won't judge back. I'm just going to clearly see it for what it is and witness it. But I'm never going to return that. It's just a plain ping pong, right? So thank you so much for staying tuned. I encourage you to do this work, the shadow within. If you know how to do that, you can always assist others. More about that and how it's going to be in the book. If you're in any way guided to support the process of writing my book, you feel it's influential and important, you can do that. All the links are shared down below. And I always honor you so much. And that's what I do so we could grow beyond the separation and be as one being in unity, because that's who we truly are. I love you so much. With love, wisdom, and power. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Again. Time after time. Again. Bye.
Welcome into my world, the world of the elven song, magical.